Hi everybody, welcome to the Château de la Grifferaie. It's season 4, I believe episode 9. It's Story Sunday. We're going to tell you a little bit more about our story at the end of this video, but we also have lots of regular renovation stuff too.
Yep.
What's the week been like, Bess?
You know, it's been stormy. We've had crazy winds, like things flying off the terrace in the back, and powerful rains, and then it's really warm and the sun comes out like right now. And then we've had thunder today, like all week. Crazy spring weather.
Another tree broke on the path.
I know. So it's been crazy weather.
Yeah.
I guess it's, spring and winter trying to fight it out.
Yeah. So, you know what? Lots of stuff we were working on. Hope you enjoy the video. So this is how the video is going to go today. We're going to start off with a bunch of different chateau renovation stuff like we normally do. Just little clips that we take here and there. Then we're going to do Story Sunday, and it's going to be chapter 4 of our story. Things start to come together a little bit. And then finally we'll end with a restaurant that we're going to go to in a few minutes, actually.
Yay.
So we haven't been there. It should be fun. Marble is pretty dirty, and so we're cleaning off the front and the back. See how good we can get it. Seems like the steel wool is doing a pretty good job. Maybe a really, really fine sander later. We'll see. We don't want to wreck the polish, obviously. So, yeah. Much easier going into wood, but we gotta have some anchors, and so I'm putting in the rock. It's gonna work. Leslie's been working hard to clean up the marble, and we got it sitting on a board. So structurally, the idea was with these sideboards is you had nothing really to affix the marble to, so I put the sideboards on so we'd have a good place for the construction adhesive. Also, a good way to anchor it into the stone, so that gives us quite a bit of strength across the back. So we'll see how this goes. This is an adventure. So we got the sides on, and we'll let them harden for a bit. And while we're doing it, we will try to get some of these doors trimmed. Some of them don't open all the way. Leslie did a nice job. So we'll trim that up just a little bit so she opens perfectly. Well, it's coming along. It's going slow because I've never done this before, but it's coming, I think, fairly well. We got the sides glued on, and I've got the base that's gonna go underneath. We'll put more of those floor pieces over, and then of course there'll be cushions on top. So it's all coming together. This little top piece is good, except a little too tight. That's a bummer, because this otherwise fits so beautifully. We'll trim it out. Now, a lot of people talk about, ecology and global warming and conservation, and on one level I'm with them, because I think we shouldn't be wasteful and we shouldn't pollute the planet. But I've always kind of felt like there's common sense missing in the argument. Like, for example, we could have gone out and bought all new stuff for this, and it would have been more expensive and it would have been wasteful, because the truth is, I have these kitchen cabinets that we pulled out of the basement, the 1980s. Well, the kitchen had already been pulled out, but there was just a cabinet sitting there, really ugly. So we pulled that out and we're using that as the base. And I was looking for screws. I'm like, I'm running out of screws. And then I realized that we took down the fence and I have a whole pail full of screws. Now, they've been outside for a while, so they're not probably quite as nice, but they're gonna do the job. And it just seems like common sense stuff like that. I don't know. Well, now we'll see how this thing looks when we're done, but it's we're making progress. Got the level on it. Of course, you want to make sure everything's even, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Get the level on that. Yeah, that's good, eh? That's acceptable. Yep, acceptable. One of the things I kind of like about being a chateau owner is I feel like there's a certain amount of permission to be eccentric. So for example, I got to take the garbage out. It's a long ways, so I'm going to wear my house coat. It's 8 at night. I just got cleaned up, bringing the garbage out here, and I'm doing it with the trailer pulled behind the truck because I'm tired. And so I don't know. That kind of lifestyle appeals to me, a little bit eccentric. Getting ready to have a shower, and thought I'd answer a couple questions. One person was saying, hey, you need some privacy in this room. And we have it. Remember, these inside shutters are incredible. So a person can close as much of them as they want. You could even get quite a bit of light. You could close that much and you've completely got privacy, or even less. Honestly though, when you're this high up, very few people could see. Now, one, there is a tiny angle you could probably go from that room, so you'd have to think through that. That's one of the guys' rooms, but from the floor, from the ground, no one's probably gonna see you. A second question was, what are the GA rooms? Graduate assistants. So this year we're gonna try to bring a couple of former students back. We like them, they're good workers and good people, and they're gonna join the group, and we call them grad assistants. We let them come for free, basically. It's kind of like an internship, and we subsidize it a little bit, so it'll be really fun to have them, but they have to sleep in the basement, in the sous-sol. Extremely windy day today. Look at our hedge. Ah, that's right, hedge. Way to make the comeback. May they make the comeback. Extremely windy day, and we're going to tours. And I have mixed feelings about it. We need a bunch of things. We need more bedding. We have more people this year, and more hand towels, and 2 mattresses, and some shelves, and a number of other items. And we're gonna get all that stuff, but it kind of means a missed day of work. So I'm trying to just stay with the positive and enjoy the fact that I'm not doing tiles today. All right, so we got to the brocante.
We did. One of my favorite places to go. Always lots of great things that you find. This I particularly liked. I would love to have something like this on the property at some point for in the
big
garden.
Stone table.
Yeah,
they always have lots of good lights. You saw that reclining chair for $600. No, thank you.
No, thank you, indeed. Yeah, often this is where we find chandeliers or armoires.
Yeah.
Or little side tables, all that kind of stuff. Beds, I find here. Often chairs for the classroom. Today I actually found I've been looking for a side table actually in our bedroom. We've been using these tiny little 12-inch cubes. This one was a great looking piece for a good deal. And I don't know if it's particularly old, but I think it'll be great. It's a perfect size.
For France, 180's a lot, but it's a beauty though. Look at this guy for $129.
Yeah, that one was a cool.
I thought he was cool.
Carved
Big
piece.
carved
Did
thing.
you look inside? I never saw
did
it.
not, and then of course I tried to. I wanted us to get the big sanglier, even though that is kind of spooky.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
I'm sure
one.
lots of people out there don't want us to do that, but
some of them look happier than others, but
yeah.
And then they have a bunch of kind of new stuff, unfortunately. And then we found.
Oh, we should have bought this. We only had our car. Here's a poker table, like a game table,
I know.
and it was about $40.
Yeah.
Insane. Well, the bad weather's coming, but while it's nice, I'm gonna get out here. It's Saturday, I'm gonna mow. I'm gonna have a nice time. I'm gonna maybe take a look at this sports court fence, tennis court fence, and see if we can fix that. And just enjoy some beautiful vitamin D. So, the fence, how are we going to take it down? By the way, it's gonna feel really nice to clean this up, all the stuff around the base. So looking at it, it kind of looks like this thing is holding on the wire, and the wire is holding the fence on. So I just got to figure out how to open that up, which, no idea. I think my first thing is I'm going to get a screwdriver in there and see if that just pries open. Because if that pries open and I can get that wire out, then the whole fence just comes off real easy. So I will need a ladder and a screwdriver, and what I don't want to do is cut it, because I'd like to use the same pieces. Don't want to go out and buy all new stuff, plus the work of taking it down and putting it up. So we'll give that a shot today if we get the time. And we're in a race. We're in a race to this tree that's pointing directly at us. You can't really see the lean here because of course it's leaning towards us. But there she be. It's tall as anything. It's really, really tall. So we'll get one more quote. You know, it'd be nice to get a bunch of quotes. We hate to waste guys' times. We don't want to waste the time of the trade guys. So we are going to get a quote, another quote next week, and then probably we'll take one of the two guys. Though if it happens to fall down in the meantime, then we just save the money. There's really no difference. Nobody stands out here. Nobody's out here. So if it falls on its own, or if we cut it to fall, it doesn't matter as long as the fence comes down first. You woke up this morning. Oh, we missed the first part. You missed the first. You woke up this morning with your hand not hurting, and you did 2 jobs, and now it's hurting. It is what it is. Mr. Bubs is happy. You're throwing the ball to him, aren't you?
Yeah, he knows when I start weeding, he gets to play fetch.
Yeah. What you doing with the broom?
Well, I had like pulled off all the moss on the edge of the house.
Ah, it looks great.
So it died now, so I was sweeping it off.
Sweeping it up, throwing it in the bins. And also looking like you're knocking the spider's webs off too.
Yeah, so I don't see them from my kitchen window.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, we'll put Mr. Bubs' ball on camera. Go get it, Bubs.
Oh, much better than when I throw it.
Well, that's not... Here he comes. Here he comes.
He's a good boy.
The people want more Mr. Bubs. There we go. Okay, where's the ball? Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Oh, there it is. Mr. Bubs needs a new ball. One that shows up on camera more. Oh,
well,
yeah.
It's dirty. It's been an outside bowl.
Yeah, he does have a few other balls. Yeah.
He's a good boy.
Okay, good news. Yeah, these are the ticket. These things here, these bottom guys. And you just turn them with the old wrench, and then the wires come loose, and the wires are what's holding it on, so I don't have to take off all the brackets. So it'll take a couple hours, but I think I should be able to get this done. Got caught in a bit of a downpour, so I ran into the cover of the restaurant, and then I thought I'd check the drains. This one was completely jammed. We haven't been great at getting out here just because we don't use this a lot, but we need to get out here a little bit more. Look at the pressure of it coming though. Obviously we don't want to wreck this nice restaurant. Always something or another. Hi everybody, welcome to Story Sunday Part 4. I'm really enjoying these Story Sundays where we get to tell you a little bit about our life and what brought us to own this big chateau. Because all of us have a story, right? All of us have a story. I think one of the parts of human nature, one kind of inherent bias we have is that we tend to look at our story and assume that we're the main character. So we assume that the story is kind of about us. And sometimes we fail to see kind of the bigger picture. And in this story, we really got to see how things started to come together. It's a bit windy out today, so I will pause at certain times to try to avoid you guys having to listen to a lot of wind. So when we left Story Sunday number 3, we'd taken some L's. We'd had some hard times. My parents had been killed in a car accident when we were quite young, and we had gone on eventually to become, I was working in a church as a worship pastor, which had not gone well. I wasn't fantastic at it, and that was tough. And we thought maybe we'd get to go do our dream job at Briarcrest, which we'd always wanted to our whole life, and I applied and got rejected. And just at that point, man, we were needing a W. We were needing a win. And so we weren't sure what to do. We knew I wanted to teach, and so we'd always thought about doing a doctorate in hopefully England, you know, try to get into a Cambridge or Oxford. I don't know that I would have got in. Those are pretty good schools. I've heard it's easier to get in the doctoral programs. Who knows? But that's what we hope to do. But then some things happened in Leslie's life, which hopefully one day she will tell some of her story, and you'll get to add that in. That made it so that we needed to stay close to home. And close to home was southern Saskatchewan for us. And so we found a good school, Providence Theological Seminary in Manitoba, a place called Manitoba, right in the middle of Canada. It's a lot like Germany in terms of, it feels a lot like Germany to me with the land, you know, the kind of trees that they have. It's very cold in the winters, really nice people, big city, Winnipeg. And so we moved all the way over to Manitoba and lived in a town called Steinbach. Now, initially, I was thinking, well, we'll just go to school and you know, it'll be a nice break from being a church worker, because you know, actually being a pastor is kind of hard. Now, some folks probably watching the video don't really know a lot of Christians or a lot of church people. Maybe you have kind of assumptions of what you think pastors do, or, you know, I know there's a lot of bad stereotypes out there. The truth is, I know a lot of pastors, and they generally work really hard and they get paid very little, and they're doing it because they care. And honestly, they have kind of a hard job because it's never done, and people can kind of complain sometimes. And that had happened when I was a worship pastor. Some folks, you know, weren't huge fans, and so there were tough times. And coming out of there, I was a little bit kind of like, maybe it sounds weak, but I was a little bit hurt, maybe just a bit, you know. Hate to say that, but and so I thought, well, it'll be good. We'll go to school, have a change of pace, and we drove off to Steinbach, put everything in a big truck, head over to Manitoba, middle of Canada. And so sure enough, before we get there, I get a call from one of my friends and he says, hey, you know what? There's a good church, the Evangelical Mennonite Church of Steinbach, that is looking for a youth pastor. Maybe you should think about doing it. And I thought, well, that could be interesting. And I started to do some homework, and they'd been one of the early churches in town. They'd been kind of the big church in town for a lot of years, an older church, 130 years old, had a great building, but they, some of the other churches had been a little bit more newer and maybe more cutting edge. And so they weren't, they had maybe plateaued a little bit with attendance. And so I thought, well, that might be interesting. And prior to that time, we'd always kind of worked in the big, popular, cool church, like where everybody wanted to be, all the young people. And this is a church that, again, is a little bit older. And so, the youth group had gotten smaller, and we'd have to rebuild it a bit. And so I thought, well, that'd be a good challenge. And so sure enough, we called them up, and they flew us out for an interview. And we loved them. We loved the people. They were fantastic. One of the best churches we worked at. We made friends there that we will have for life. And so, we started working there, working with the young people, and it was wonderful. Yeah, really loved it. Now, financially, it was an interesting situation because now you remember my parents were killed. And so if this would have happened in America, it would have been cha-ching, because it's a really litigious society. People sue for a lot of money. But it happened in Canada, and Canada's not so much that way. So we didn't get a huge amount of money. We did get some insurance money, a couple $100,000 actually. And so perhaps you're sitting here watching these videos going, how do people buy these chateaux? I mean, because if you've done your homework a little bit, you realize that you can't take a mortgage as a foreigner in France, and so you have to have the cash in hand. So you do have to have some money to buy one of these things. But then a lot of people assume right away that we're rich and that we're independently wealthy, or we make a lot of money at our jobs or something. And I always kind of sit back and chuckle, if they only knew. Most of our lives, I mean, everybody in North America, in Canada, America is rich to a certain extent, so we're all doing pretty good. But in terms of comparatively in North America, we've always been the lowest income tax bracket. So I think I mentioned we started at, I think 24,000 was our first job, and then we got about 50,000 later. So that's a lot for some countries, but in North America, that's not a lot. And so we but then suddenly we got to get some money for my parents dying, and so we put it all on the mortgage and paid off our house, which was great. And that helped us to get ahead. Now, one thing we have been very fortunate at is both Leslie and I are pretty careful with money. In fact, if you watch this show, you probably notice we avoid paying. We try to be really careful with our money, and that's the only way we can do stuff in life, because we don't have a ton of income. And so it's worked for us. Everybody's different. It's funny. People will, they'll see the pictures of the chateau and the video, and then they'll write and they'll ask for money for an organization somewhere around the world. And I'm kind of like, guys, you're barking up the wrong tree. Everything we have, we had to sell for this. So we don't have a huge reserve. But anyways, that got us started financially. And so we came to buy a house in Steinbach, and as luck would have it, we got this really cool house. It was about 45 years old, brutally outdated. But of course, Leslie's a designer, so whatever house we buy, she's going to change everything, because she's got a very good eye. And so it was not that expensive, but it was 1 acre. It had 1 acre of property in the middle of town. It was Dr. I'm gonna forget his name now. It was Dr. Henry? Nah, I can't remember now. It was the Dr. Petter, maybe? The first doctor in Steinbach, and it was sort of, at one point, it was maybe one of the nicer houses in town, but then it had gone downhill quite a bit. So we had a ton of fun with that house, renovating it, and I was the youth pastor for 3 years. Fantastic. And honestly, I would have stayed there the rest of my life. The people were great. We had this small group that was insanely cool. And even things like, I could build a big ice rink in the backyard. We'd dump out water, and it was so cold that it would stay frozen for months. And the neighborhood kids would come over and skate around. It was super fun. It had boards on there and lights and everything. But then suddenly I got a phone call from our old friend Steve, who we'd worked with in Chicago. Remember that? He was the high school pastor. And he'd gone on to be the division chair of practical theology at Multnomah University. And every 5 years he would call us and say, hey, you guys want to come to Portland and teach? And I'd always be like, yeah, we're Canadian. That'd be pretty hard to be an immigrant. And, and so finally he called up and he said, this is around maybe 2004, I guess, 2005. And he's like, hey, Rob, Leslie's like, I finally got a position. They created a position because, the school's less than 1,000 students, but in the undergrad, I think there were 600 or 700. and he had 200 of them in his 2 programs. So there's a whole bunch of programs at the school, but his programs were really good because he's a really good teacher and a good chair. And so, you know, they'd gotten so big that they needed to hire a second guy. And so he's like, do you want to come fly out and check it out? And so sure enough, we got on the plane and we flew out to Portland, Oregon, to the United States, ATAS Uni. And we met the students and we loved them. They were fantastic. They had good hearts. They wanted to make the world a better place. They were looking at me to teach something called youth ministry, which is working with kids in camps and social work, a lot of churches, and even criminal justice. Kids use it in a lot of different places. And so I'd just been working on my doctorate on that. And man, we loved it, but it was expensive as anything because the United States, the housing is brutal. And so, we took a look at what we were going to sell our house for in Steinbach and what we were going to have to pay in Portland. And we were like, this is not okay. And man, it looked like it was going to be really hard. And it was hard on several levels. For one thing, Steinbach had been such a wonderful experience. It was like a healing time in our life because the people were so good to us, and the youth, we loved the young people, and so to leave that was tough. I think when we drove out of there, I cried for the first 30 minutes driving out of Steinbach, and so it was not a church to be easily given up. But this opportunity in Portland was so good, and they offered us the job, and again, not a big paying job. I think we started at $38,000 a year, if you can imagine that. And at that time in Portland, you needed more than $300,000 to buy a house. So we were like, ooh, we flew in for a weekend. I think we saw 40 homes. The nice thing about being married to Leslie is she'll come into a house and she'll walk into it, and right away she knows if she likes it or doesn't like it because she's got very defined sense of aesthetics. And so that, we were able to go really quick. We burned through 2 real estate agents, but we saw a bunch of houses and we made an offer on one and eventually bought it. But that was not to say that we were going to be able to get into the country, because of course we're immigrants. And I think I talked earlier in this story about how sometimes, you take one little step of faith and it's scary, and then, God helps you out and you get through it, and then you feel stronger, and then you're willing to take another step that's a little bigger, and it's kind of like a growing thing. And we'd been through that several times in life, with my parents dying, with being sued for $1 million, and with going to the United States with not enough money, and all of these things. And so, they made us an offer, and they said, we'll take out a lawyer to, work on your green card, which is super, super nice of them. And so we said yes, and we, sold our house, and we arranged a big moving truck, 53-foot truck, and we started working with the immigration lawyers to come. And it was not easy. Changing countries is not easy. If you've never done it, it's not easy. So, we're thinking, well, this will be easy because we've got money in the bank, but we didn't have enough to buy the house in Portland. And so we went to the bank. We said, hey, we'd like to take out a loan. We can put 70% down on this house. And they said, oh, great, no problem. And they started quoting us, and then they said, can we have your social security number? I said, oh, we don't have one yet. We're immigrants. We've got our green card coming in, and they said, oh, you don't have a social security number. So then they're thinking we're undocumented maybe, and so they said, oh, we can get you a mortgage, but we're gonna have to charge some extra fees. And they wanted to charge us $40,000 extra. People talk about systemic racism, and that's a phrase that gets people angry, but that means sometimes the system is set up so that people from the outside have a difficult time, and it's not intentional necessarily, but it's just, they have to protect. They don't know who we are. We don't have a credit rating or anything, and so they don't want to take a gamble on us. So, but then, and so they create this extra fund to protect themselves, but that means it's harder for an immigrant. They have to come up with an extra $40,000. Same thing, by the way, with car insurance. We got a quote for one car. I think it was $600 for maybe it was 6 months. I don't know. And then they found out that we didn't have a social security number, and they said, oh, for you it's $1,600, not $600. So there's a bunch of things to get past, and financial difficulties. For one thing, we were like, how are we going to get this mortgage? Because, they didn't want to give it to us. And so sure enough, I wrote the school and I said, hey, is there any chance you guys could front us, a little bit of money just for a couple of months until we get our number, because the bank is killing us? And they said yes. They were very kind to us. And so the date comes, we sell the house, we're getting ready to move to the United States.
And all of a sudden I get a call from the lawyer a couple days before we're supposed to move. And so we've packed everything up. In fact, I think we had everything in the truck, the big 53-foot truck, ready to go to the United States. And he's going to send us these documents, H-1B, and then a green card and all of these things. And he's like, oh, I have some really bad news. He's like, I made a mistake. My office sent your documents to the wrong place, and they have to send them back. And so we don't have documents for you to enter the United States. And we're like, we've quit our job. We've taken our kids out of school. We've got all of our possessions in a 53-foot truck ready to go to, Portland, Oregon. And we bought a house there. And we got all these things. And then you're like, we can't get into the country. And so, at that point, sometimes it's funny, these immigration lawyers, I don't want to say they're predatory, but I think they maybe prey on people sometimes that really want to get into the country. And so we had done a fair amount of research ourselves just on the internet about what we needed to do. And we heard of something called a TN visa, which is a 1 year for certain jobs. And the job I had my doctorate almost, and it qualified us. And it's just, you drive to the border with $50 and you show them your stuff and hopefully they let you in if you get the right person. And so Leslie's like, well, why don't you we were like, what are we going to do? And this lawyer was kind of useless. No offense to him. He took a lot of money from the school, but he did not, it was not very on the ball. And so Leslie goes, why don't you just get all your stuff together, dress up as good as you can, get into the car and drive to the border and see if they'll let you in. And so I did. I combed my hair and did everything as good as I could. I'm like, okay, here we go. God, do you want us in Oregon? We started driving, and I got to the border, and I, yes sir, no sir, as nice as I could be. And in the situations where you're an immigrant, you're completely disempowered. Like, you get somebody that's having a bad day and they can kick you out of the country. People don't realize that about being an immigrant. It's quite the thing. If you've ever tried to become an immigrant, you will become less racist of a person. Like, you'll see what it's like on the other side. It's actually a good experience, but a hard one. And so we get to the border, and I'm praying all the way there, and we get there, and the guy looks at our stuff, and he, he's taking this, and he's asking me questions, and it turns out you couldn't use a credit card to pay, and so you needed cash, and I didn't quite have enough. It had to be American cash. And so the border guard lent us the last $5, just said, he's like, and then we were short of like $5. So he gives us the $5 and he's like, welcome to the United States. And we were just like, oh. And so I remember driving home and just, beautiful sunset and just like singing worship songs the whole way. So thankful for, how God had brought us through. So I started teaching, love teaching. We love Portland, so many great people, so many great students, and started to go there, and everything was going great. And at the end of the first year, it had gone really well. Mr. Bingley. So we love Portland. We love Multnomah. It was so great to teach all these wonderful students, and had 3 great classes teaching the youth ministry. And the first year was fantastic. And it was such a break from being a pastor too. Being a pastor is really cool. I liked it. And I love caring for people, but it was, you're never done. There's always more you can do. And so if you're a hard worker, it can turn into 50, 60 hours a week real quick. And so teaching is more defined. You're finished your teaching and you've got your stuff graded and you're ready to go. And it came fairly easily to me. And so every night I'd like pace the house going, I feel like I should still be working. And so it was a real nice break the first year of teaching, even though I know a lot of people say the first year is hard because you got to develop your curriculum. But for me, it was great. At the end of the first year, I get a call from the academic dean, Dr. Strickland. And he's like, Rob, some things have come up, and he's like, everything's gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine, but you gotta come in you should come in right now. And it's like 2 weeks till the new semester, the new year. And I think I'm gonna teach 3 or 4 classes because they start you off a little easy. And so I'm nervous, and I drive in, I'm like, oh, what happened? Are we getting kicked out of the country? What's going on? And it turns out that one of my colleagues had to leave really quickly from his position. Some things had come up and he had to leave. And my boss, Dr. Strickland, was kind of like, I'm really sorry. He's like, we need you to lead all these programs. And if possible, we need you to teach 8 classes. And for a college university, that's a lot of classes. Usually you teach 3 or 4. Now some of them were 1-hour classes. But it was on 2 weeks. And so I was like, and so I started working, and I think I had 325 students that semester. And it was one of my favorite years ever of work because I got to know so many students, and I do enjoy teaching. And so it was this incredible year, and again, the school was kind of in a difficult spot because they had lost a much beloved faculty member at the last minute, and everybody was a little bit scared for the future because you lost this great guy, and who's going to take care of everything. And so sure enough, we were there to take care of it. And then something interesting happened. I got a call from Briarcrest. Remember the Briarcrest I'd always wanted to work at? The school that I had applied for that terrible job, that half paid salary kind of thing with all the bad jobs. And I was so disappointed when I came home. And they called me up and they said, "Hey, Rob," they said, we actually have a position opening up this next year. And, you'd be the chair of the department and all these good things. And I'm listening to it. I'm looking up at the heavens and I'm like, God, what are you doing? What? I wanted my whole life to be here. And I would have, at any point in my life, the first 35 years of my life, I would have dropped everything to say yes to this. And now, after we've moved our whole life to Portland, to the United States, we've been immigrants, and the school has done so much for us. Now I'm supposed to, turn my back on that and run. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. And so I said, no, guys, we can't do it. We have to be faithful to the school we're at here. And I'm like, and then suddenly it all started to click. It all started to click for me. I was like, maybe this is not about me. Remember, maybe all this is not about me. My parents dying, and then us getting a couple $100,000, and then me failing at the worship job, and then trying to get this teaching job. It didn't happen. And so, we end up going over here, and then we get to this school, and all of a sudden, I come to Multnomah, and Multnomah's in a place where they really needed somebody. And you've got all these students, couple hundred students, ministry students, incredible potential for the future. And suddenly they're in a place where they need somebody, and there I am. Perhaps not accidentally. And it all started to make sense. Everything was falling into place. And I'm like, oh, maybe that's what you were doing. See, I was so wrapped up in myself. I assumed that all this was about my failure to impress those guys at Briarcrest with my teaching, or my inability to do this or that, or to, and what I didn't realize is maybe, and again, this is Christian now, so I'm definitely into Christian land here. If you're not a Christian, this might sound weird to you, but at least you understand Christians. It occurred to me, God has been organizing all of this, and he's been putting these things together because he knows we're going somewhere, and he knows we're going to do something. And so it was such a beautiful moment, when you realize that your life is maybe going somewhere. There's a story, the book of Esther. Have you ever read the book of Esther in the Old Testament? There's this lady, and terrible things happen. She gets taken off as to Babylon and Persia, and as a slave refugee, 400 or 500 years BC, and the king gets rid of his wife, and he has this beauty contest to build his harem, and he picks Esther. All this bad stuff happens to her, and she's sort of conscripted into being his wife, and he's not a good dude at all if you read the story. And then the story keeps developing, and then at one point all the Israelites are going to be killed, and then her uncle goes, what if God has brought you to your royal position for such a time as this? It's like such a powerful line. It's like, what if God has been organizing the steps of your life so that you be in the right place to do this one thing that needed to be done? What if I'm not the main character in my story? What if he's doing something else? And that was beautiful. And honestly, one of the things I love about Christianity is there's a beauty in realizing that there's something bigger than yourself, and it's not just, am I happy today because I had a good meal? There's bigger things, and trying to make the world a better place, and trying to help people, and all of these things. And so sure enough, it started to come together, and we started to understand what exactly God was doing with us. Guys, thanks for coming along for part 4 of our story. I can't wait to tell you about the Portland years and kind of how we ended up here. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, here we go. We're in Beaugé. We're going to try this place again. We've been rejected 2 or 3 times for it being full or not having reservations. And we do have a reservation tonight, we think. All right, here we are. We've successfully ordered. And what did you get today, Leslie?
Le terrine, which is kind of like a pate with cornichons, which are little French pickles.
Yeah. And then we have some bread. And then I have a fish tartare. So raw tuna. Should be good. Here we have some nice point, which means medium well, beef. and some pomme de terre and some nice sauce. And then Leslie's looks great. Leslie's
it's
got
fun.
a canard. So that duck,
Uh-huh.
that looks very fancy.
More potatoes. Yeah, I wasn't expecting this presentation.
Yeah, good. A little salad. Should be a good meal. So with the canard, is it pureed? What is it? Is it cut up?
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of like pulled, like you'd say pulled pork, but
Pulled
it's
pork, but
it's
pulled duck.
stuck
Yeah.
with potatoes, and then I think it's just like a stack, right? They've stacked the three together, so with some kind of
Yeah, it's interesting.
sauce.
Okay, le dessert looks terrific. Leslie's got a chocolate fondant or something to that effect.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was
They called
called
it something else, but
It's called something different, but it looks like a fondant. And I have a tower of ice cream and cream.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
And white chocolate, I think.
Yeah, we'll go give that a go. Well, we finally got in. It's an interesting restaurant. You go in, little area, and then it kind of goes around, and then it's one room after the other with the little foyer.
Yep. Well, and behind the little arch there,
Yeah.
on the right here,
Yep.
Oop, there, there's a little courtyard inside, which
Yeah.
could be cute in the summer.
Yeah, in the center of town.
Yeah.
I think the dessert was the highlight for me. For you?
Yeah. Maybe the main dish.
Yeah.
Was probably the best.
Yep. Anyways, lots of fun. Have a good weekend, everybody.
So thanks for coming along on the journey. The trees are budding, the leaves are starting to pop out, so maybe next week we'll have full leaves on all the trees. We'll see you then.